It seems a little bit counterintuitive, but part of good public speaking is learning how to be a good listener. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the things that I do before I get in front of an audience. Maybe that's even before getting in front of the TV camera or giving a live keynote. The first thing that I do is that I ask, who is going to be in the audience? And I'll give you an example. About 2 years ago, I was asked to give a keynote at a luncheon. It was this particular organization's 30th year conference. It was the Asian American Hotel Owners Association. And for the very first time, women hoteliers numbered in critical mass. So in the sea of men, they decided that they were going to host a luncheon specifically for women business owners. There were about 1,600 women in the room, and my ask or my mandate was that I was going to give an inspirational keynote for women in business. I said, okay, fine, I get the ask, but what are the specific pain points of the women in this audience? Because women business owners in hotel and hospitality are very different than women business owners in, let's say, I don't know, beauty, right? There's different pain points. So I wanted to understand what those would be. So I said, could you introduce me to 6 of the women that are going to be in the audience, because I'd like to interview them. And I really truly wanted to understand what is their day-to-day and what are their pain points. I structured my story is that I told my personal story of how I overcame failure at different junctures. But then I finished with 6 takeaways. One of the big issues that a lot of the women faced is that they belonged to several generations of hotel owners. So they had their own dreams, but they kind of got sucked into a different career trajectory because of the demands of their family. So how do you realize a dream when you already have a full-time job? The second pain point was, how do you build a personal brand when you're working for a much bigger brand? So for example, if you owned a Marriott or if you owned a Hyatt or a Red Roof Inn, that's fine, you're answerable to a much bigger corporate entity, but how can you start to build your own brand? What are people saying about you when you're not in the room? The third pain point was how to have tough conversations. Anytime you're heading up a base of employees or managers or what have you, you're gonna have tough conversations. So what are some tools that I could leave the audience with in order for you to be able to be, just better at having those kinds of conversations? Fundamentally, I could tell my personal story, but then I tailored the end to my audience. And this is tip number 2, and something that I consider before I deliver anything to anyone, whether it's on camera or it's in front of a live audience, is what kind of language does my audience use? And I'll give you an example. So I've covered business news for 20 years from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, but the kind of report that I would give to, let's say, a sophisticated investor that watches Bloomberg would be very different than the type of report that I would give on morning TV, which is totally chat driven. I'll give you an example. So let's say I'm talking about Kellogg's, and Kellogg's is a publicly traded company, and I was talking about what their stock was doing today because their earnings just came out. For a more sophisticated investor, I would talk about the year-over-year comparisons. They earned this last year, they earned this year, numbers are up and down this percentage. I would probably also talk about the future of Kellogg's, 4th quarter guidance, year ahead guidance. This is what the company is saying about their numbers. They're going to be below expectations, above expectations, and here's what they're really pegging their success to. Now, if I'm speaking to an audience of just consumers who are on their white noise in the morning because they're getting ready to get their kids to school or getting ready for work, they don't necessarily want all the nitty-gritty of what Kellogg's is doing in terms of a stock, but they might have it in their portfolio and they're interested to understand what's going on. So in that case, I might talk about Kellogg's introducing a brand new paleo bar or a new bar that you can just throw in your purse on the way out, and they're really pegging their future success to the introduction of this product to their portfolio. Boom, done. Morning TV is so chat driven. You've got to be funny. You've got to be hilarious. And so, so many of those details that I would be delivering to a very sophisticated Bloomberg audience would not be applicable to my very consumer morning TV audience. So really consider the language that you're going to be using and be accessible to the audience that you're speaking to. Now, the final piece, and this is relevant to today's story, is that you want to be a better listener. And I'm going to show you 3 ways that you can do that. But part of being a better listener means that you're going to ask better questions. You're going to be better understanding of the person that's in front of you. And in my case, with morning TV, if I'm listening to what the anchor is saying, there's an opportunity for me to be funny, to leverage humor. So let's talk about the 3 things, whether you're doing this in person, whether you're doing this at a meeting, how to be a better listener. Point number 1 is eye contact. Don't you hate it when you go to a networking event and you're talking to somebody and their whole eye gaze is just darting around the room? They're darting around the room because they want to see who else is coming in. They want to see who else they could be talking to. They're not even actually listening to anything that you're saying. Well, first of all, that's incredibly disrespectful, right? So you never want to be the person that does that to somebody else. Your eye contact, smiling, nodding, those are ways that you are asserting to the person on the other side of the table that you're listening. If I'm at a dinner, I like to take my phone and actually turn it face down. It's something I've learned by watching other people. I don't want to be distracted by all the dinging and ringing and messages and my phone lighting up every time we speak. I want to give the person in front of me my full attention, so I often turn my phone down. When you give somebody else your undivided attention, what does it do? It gives you charisma, it gives you respect, and it also possibly forces the other person, the other party, to give you the same level of listening back. It's part of reciprocity. We as human beings, if we're giving something, we actually want to give that back. It's in our human nature. So you can leverage the art of influence by using reciprocity and giving that level of attention to the other person, and they might be able to just give it back to you. Number 2 is to listen to learn. Now, when I was on TV, I would often be already thinking about my next question. I'd be thinking about the next thing I needed to say. I'd be thinking about my agenda. But now, when I'm in a networking situation or I'm just having a conversation with somebody, I listen to learn. I actually say to myself, Joya, just listen. And lead with your natural curiosity. Again, this is going to force you to ask better follow-up questions, and it's going to show that you have a better understanding of the person. The other reason you really want to listen to learn is what's in the unsaid. Yes, this person is saying X, Y, and Z, but what's the Q? What's the Y? What's the R? What's the stuff that they're not saying that they're conveying with their body language, with their facial expressions, with their eyes? The third tip is not to judge. Let's say the person has a distracting hairstyle, maybe they actually have a distracting outfit on. Can you focus your attention just on what the person is saying? Maybe even take notes as to what their main points are, but don't judge. I will actually repeat back 3 words that I heard the person say. And this is something that I learned from Chris Voss's masterclass. Chris Voss used to be an FBI negotiator, and he said that one of the ways that he would put the other party at ease is by mirroring the last 3 words that the person said, or at least 3 other words that the person said. You can summarize what the person said. You can say, this is my understanding, or from what I am hearing. And this gives the other party an opportunity to clarify or to fix anything if your understanding of what they said is off, if it's off base. And then the final tip that I'm going to offer you is let the person finish their thought. I'll admit, I'm very guilty of this. I start to jump in because I'm so excited and I want to be additive to the conversation. But sometimes this person that's sitting on the other side of the table is just about to tell you something really profound, and it doesn't come till the very end. So let people finish. Granted, there are some that just go on and on and on and on. You've got to jump in, otherwise you're never going to get your word in edgewise. But let the other party finish. Again, this person is just arriving at their own conclusions, and you want to be able to react to even that last piece as it's presented. Knowing when not to speak is just as valuable as good public speaking. Hey, I'm hosting a public speaking masterclass. The next cohort is kicking off on January 13th. If you loved what you heard here, there's going to be more of that in my public speaking masterclass. But more importantly, you are going to be able to practice in front of a group of women and be able to flex all of the things that I'm teaching in the class. So if you want to sign up, go to joyadas.com and you can click on Work with Joya to learn how to sign up. Hey, if you have any comments or questions, or if you've used any of the things that I shared about in this video, I'd love for you to A, subscribe to my channel here, or B, write me. Let me know what you've been up to and whether or not any of this worked.